Oh. Da 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 Elbaf da 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 da. All right, that worked out pretty good. Yeah, there we go. Everybody practice your Viking war chant. We got to put on a show this Friday, okay? We don't have time for this. We got to work. We got to rehearse. All right, I saw you over there. You were all feet, fumbling around, all right? Pick up your spears, and you got to do the chant correctly, all right? My goodness, this is going to be a mess. It's just going to be an absolute mess. All right, hey, everybody, how you doing? Techie 101 here. This will be One Piece chapter 1157 review titled The Legendary Bar. Oh man, what kind of legendary bar is this? A chocolate bar? A golden bar? A sand bar? A crow bar? What kind of legendary bar could this be? I don't know. Oda, 1,157 chapters in, you still know how to write a chapter title, I'll tell you that. Okay, so we continue on with Yamato's cover story. We have Yamato's Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage, Volume 39. He died protecting the village from Kaido, leaving no trace of his body behind. Who is it? We don't know yet. Who you putting your money on this one, right? We go in Shakky, we go in Silver Axe over there. I'm putting more money on Silver Axe right about now. So it is still the grave. They're still at the temple in Ringo, the shrine to this mysterious hero, this person that was born in the West but raised and died in the Ringo region of Wano. And it specifically says here, this person fought against Kaido. So there was a couple of guesses on who exactly this could be. At first I threw out Shakky because Shakky dresses in a manner that's very indicative of the samurai of Wano, but that was before we met Silver Axe last chapter, right? So Silver Axe also dresses in the same way, right? He's called Kyo the Hitman, is his real name is Kyo, but later he would be called Silver Axe, and he's a rival of Shakky, which would make sense because Shakky is the golden lion, so gold and silver, okay? So we have Yamato, Ocho, and Okiku here at the grave praying. In the background, at the bottom of the stairs of the temple, we have Ulti and Page 1 making a giant snowman version of Kaido. That was what Ulti was doing in the last one. I know it's been a while since the last cover page because there's been some break weeks and stuff, but Ulti was running on ahead, and I was kind of curious of what that was all about. She was making a snowman. That's what she was doing. So this is a dude that literally died, gave his life, had his body completely obliterated, or so we know. I mean, leaving no trace of his body behind, so probably still alive somewhere. But in honor of that person's memory, Ulti is making a snowman version of Kaido, and Ulti and Page 1 don't really seem to give a shit about the temple, about the person buried there. They're just like, hey, Pepe, you want to make a snowman? Would you like to build a snowman? And Page 1's just like, no. Not really. not particularly. But anyway, there's Snowman Kaido down there, right? So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Kyo. I'm gonna go with Silver Axe. He was born in the West. He, trained originally in Wano, and then went out to sea and joined the Rocks Pirates. After this was all said and done at God Valley, though, Kaido takes up operations at Wano with Orochi, and they start ruining the country. So, it would make sense that somebody else on the Rocks Pirates, and all of the Rocks Pirates didn't really get along, so he returns to go fight him, and he died trying to save everybody, right? To protect his village, to protect his region of Ringo, okay? And he died, unfortunately, right? It could also be a thing where maybe Kaido and Shakky teamed up just to kind of finish the rivalry, because it really does seem that Shakky and Kyo both had a history in Wano. They either were we know that somebody was born in the West and then ended up there, but maybe they both trained at Wano at some point, right? And that's how they became rivals, and they went their separate ways, and they ended up on the Rocks crew together, and then they separated again, and then they had this big final climactic battle along with Kaido at Wano. And it resulted in one of their bodies getting completely obliterated, which, if there's no body left behind, probably still alive, right? But very interesting cover page. Oda's still focusing on this, so this is going to be important. All right, so we continue where we left off last chapter, and last chapter's conclusion was a doozy, ladies and gentlemen. We had the proper reveal of the Rocks Pirates, formed about 44 years ago, and it was just absolutely insane with that final double-page spread of everybody there. Rocks telling everyone that, if you stick with me, I'm not telling you have to stay on the crew. If you don't believe me, whatever, but if you stick with me, you're going straight to the top. I'll show you the apex of this world, right? So with all that stuff being the setup, we open this chapter with the Rocks crew plundering a particular temple on an island. Okay, so this is like the Rocks crew like, all right, everybody, let's get out there and do pirate things. Pirates! And they're all like, yeah! And then they go out and do pirate things, okay? So this is Foot Colony in a Temple of International Philanthropy Federation. Okay, so basically what this is, it's a temple that gathers donations to give to people that are in impoverished places in the world, okay? Assuming places that are not allied with the government, even places that are allied with the world government, they have to pay heavenly tributes and everything like that. So this is like a charity organization, basically, that Rox's crew is stealing from. Don't feel too bad. It turns out that they were all just, they were bullshitting, and they're not really a charity organization. It was just a front. You know, they're criminals, but like at first it's like, oh hey Rox, that's not cool. What about all the sad puppy dogs out there in the world? This charity was helping them. It's just like, no. But they're attacking this place, and it's like a temple, and a lot of the people there are all dressed in like monk robes, and there's like a high priest and everybody. It's like, oh, head priest, what are we going to do? The Rocks pirates are attacking us, right? So we see Wang Ji, and he's on the Den Den Mushi, and he's like, all right everybody, it looks like we got all of the loot. Let's get out of here. So we see Wang, we see Gonzui, Buckingham Stussy, Big Mom, Don Marlin has his shotgun. He's just unloading into the crowd. We have Barbell, the catfish fishman there. They all have a bunch of sacks of loot, and they're all running out of here. And the priest, the head priest, is just like, oh please, Rocks pirates, that money is for the poor, defenseless, you know, puppies and children in the world. It's charity. And Big Mom just brings up, it's just like, all right, well, if that's true, why are you keeping all this money in a giant vault at the bottom of this temple? Wouldn't it be better suited giving it out to the people that need it? And later on, the priests are just like, damn it, they figured us out. They figured us out. All right, you know, lower the bulwarks. No one's getting out alive. You know, so it's like, yeah, it was just a front organization here, right? And it's also like, you know, considering the way the world government is set up with the heavenly tribute, you imagine there would be a lot of places in the world that would probably give money in the form of donations to a place like this because of like, oh, okay, all the impoverished places in the world and stuff like that, trying to like, you know, there's not a lot of money to go around already. So it's just like, all right, the little bit that we have, we'll give to this organization, and they'll give it out to other people, right? And so they're even also just criminals, just stealing all of it, right? So some of the Rocks pirates are escaping with the loot, and some are still down in the basement level, like the vault area. And I guess they were down there stealing the loot and like throwing it up, and then everybody was like getting, you know, out of there. So on the Den Den Mushi, a few of them, so it's like Kyo and Kaido and Whitebeard are down in the vault, and they're like, hey, we're not out of here yet. You have to help us up. You know, you have to like lower the lift so we can get out of here, right? And so then we have Shakky, who's like, oh, right, yeah, I forgot, they're still down there. And he pulls out a bomb. He pulls out like an old round black explosive from like a Bugs Bunny cartoon or a Roadrunner cartoon and whatever, and just chucks it down the hole, and it blows up, and Shakky jumps, and he's like plugging his ears like, ha 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 ha, yeah, screw you guys, we're more loot for us, let's get out of here. So that's kind of the vibe with the Rocks crew. They're a pirate crew, but they're constantly at each other's throats. They're constantly screwing with each other, trying to kill each other, trying to, like, you know, they don't get along. They are not Nakama. They are not a family like the Straw Hats are, for instance, okay? So Shakky just throws a bomb down there and is like, ah, suckers, bigger cuts for us. Let's get out of here, right? So they try to bail. The head priest and all the other monks, you know, realize that, oh, okay, the sympathetic angle isn't going to work here. Like, oh, please, we're just peaceful monks. It's like, ah, darn it, they figured us out. All right, lower the turrets. It's time to fight. So they lower all the steel bars so the pirates can't escape. Big Mom is just like, oh, they're trying to trap us. Okay, well, that's not, I'll just burst through these, you know, bars pretty easily, right? And so right when they're all about to figure out a way to get out, the entire island, the temple and the whole island it's on, tilts, just like at Marineford, just like when Whitebeard used his powers of the Guru Guru no Mi. So that confirms right then and there, Whitebeard did have his powers at this point. It was kind of an idea that maybe Barbell, the catfish, might have actually been the original user of the Guru Guru no Mi, and then he dies because he's not in the present story. We haven't seen him anywhere. And then maybe Whitebeard got the devil fruit from him because catfishes in Japanese folklore can like create earthquakes, right? But no, Whitebeard at this point did have the power of the Quake fruit. We just never saw him use it really up until now, okay? So just like at Marineford, the whole like, not even just the island, but like the area around, like the ocean itself just tilts all at once. Okay, so everybody gets knocked down and the temple gets completely destroyed, and Whitebeard and Kaido and Kyo that were down in the basement get freed because of the quake powers, right? And this actually leads, this might be my favorite part of the chapter, honestly. I love this one panel where Kaido, and remember Kaido is like a teenager at this point, right? He's in his younger years, he's an apprentice pirate, he's like the lowest on the totem pole on the Rocks crew, but he kind of looks over at Whitebeard and he's just like, I gotta admit, Whitebeard, I'm a little bit jealous I cannot do that. I'm a little bit jealous that you got that crazy powerful devil fruit and I don't. And Whitebeard is just like, so you're interested in getting a devil fruit power, huh, Kaido? Well, you better choose wisely, and you better, make sure you know what power you're getting before you eat the fruit, because it's a one-and-done thing, and once you have it, yeah, that's it. You can't swim anymore, right? You gotta weigh your options. I love that scene, because it, I don't know, like Whitebeard, or I guess he's not Whitebeard yet. He's technically, he doesn't have that epithet yet. He's Edward Newgate still. But he's, giving advice to, his son, right? This is like my dad when I went and bought my first car or something. It's just like, well, son, what you want is you want to check out all your options. You want to make sure something's sensible and has good gas mileage if you're going to get a car, right? It's kind of the same thing with this. Like, oh, Kaido, you want a devil fruit power like mine. Well, I thought long and hard about the kind of power I wanted, and I made sure to, when I had the fruit, I knew what it was going to do, and, you don't want to be saddled with a power you're not happy with, because once you have it, you're done, right? You're going to have it for the rest of your life, and you got to weigh the options, do you like to swim and all that? But, yeah, if you want a devil fruit power, there's options out there for you. And Kaido's probably over there, taking notes, okay, yeah, I'll keep track. What kind of power do I want? Do I want to turn into something? Maybe I want to, do I want to turn into a griffin? Nah. Phoenix? No. Dragon. Yeah, I want to turn into a dragon. Oh, maybe Kaido originally was like, I really want to be a fish. So, Kyo is also really pissed off at Shakky, right? He shouts up to him like, Shakky, you son of a gun, throwing a bomb down into, you almost killed us, you bastard. And Shakky is just like, oh, Kyo, you were down there too? I'm so glad you survived. Man, Shakky is such a troll in this chapter. I kind of love it, right? It just kind of gives you the idea of how they're all acting amongst one another, right? And Rocks in the meanwhile is just like, what are you guys doing? Hurry up and get on the damn ship already. We're leaving. So everybody gets on the ship. At the same time, the Marines show up surrounding this island, or what used to be an island, right? And they're like, oh, it's the Marines. And Rocks even kind of brings it up like, oh, hey guys, we got to stop the infighting all the time. We got to really get ready to leave because we're going to have to fight the whole Marines here. And Whitebeard's the one that brings up, he's like, that's a little fast. That's a little bit too fast for the Marines to mobilize an entire fleet and get here. Okay, there was a traitor. There was a traitor, and it was probably Kyo. It was probably Kyo. Kyo looks so much like Zephyr. I think he is actually Zephyr, you know what I mean? The idea that he was a double agent, he showed up at Hachinosu out of the blue, like, I want to join the Rocks Pirates, like you, fellow pirates. Also remember, Kyo was never stated to be a pirate. He was stated to be a hitman, a mercenary. It's totally possible that Kyo the hitman actually existed, right? Like, he was a real hitman that was maybe enlisted by the Marines or the world government, and then they brought him in and they were like, we want you to go to Hachinosu and be our inside guy for, this whole situation for the Rocks crew and try to take them down from within. Sort of like Sword before Sword, you know what I mean? Or it could be the situation where, yeah, we had 3 admirals back in the day, right? So 56 years ago, I know this is a little bit later than that, it was like 44 years right now, but 56 years ago, there were 3 admirals. One of them could have been Kong, and one of them was killed by Rocks or was wounded and then died. And then we don't know who the third one is. It's totally possible maybe after the events at that reverie, maybe the admiral that was thought to have been killed, because it didn't say, like, Rox didn't, like, decapitate him and he died right in front of him. He said he died later. What if he survived and the story to the world was, oh no, Admiral Zephyr died and they had to find a replacement, and they did, but maybe Zephyr is still alive and he's Silver Axe and he was the founder of Sword. Ironic, because he uses an axe, but he might have been the founder of Sword. Or it could have been a completely different admiral, too. Like, that admiral that Rox fought could have died, and this was, like, another guy. I don't know, but the fact that Kyo looks a lot like Zephyr, I kind of want Zephyr to be canon. I made a video about it not too long ago, so I'm a little bit biased there. But yeah, Whitebeard right here, you know, assuming that, like, somebody might have leaked our plans because the Marines mobilized this giant fleet to kill us very fast, all right? So the Marines all mobilize there, and then Rox just shouts out, "Get ready to fight, you scallywags!" Right? Okay, and then they all fight to escape the area, right? Plunder everything and sink them all. And we have a big close-up of Rox again, right? Dude, so now we just cut to a, like a slideshow, like a montage, you know, a pirate montage of Rox's crew at their height of power and all of the things that they racked up, all of the achievements they racked up all over the world. In a mere 2 years since their formation, so this is going from 44 years ago to 42 years ago, the record of the Rox crew spoke for itself. 16 documented raids, 76 sunken ships, 14 ports reduced to ash and cinder, 5 towns wiped off the face of the map, 1 nation brought entirely to ruin by their might, 3 unprecedented violations of Article 18 of international law. Okay, we have that now in the One Piece world. I mean, I'm assuming at the Reverie they would have like something similar to like the UN. They would have like a list of things like Article 3 subsection Q or something like that. But first time we're hearing about it, whatever. And then 25 criminal records quietly erased. I don't know what that last one means. 25 criminal records quietly erased. Like, they, the government erased the record of the Rox crew, which would make sense given the fact of, like, how level 6 of Impel Down is Eternal Hell. They just kind of, like, want to remove these people from history, right? That would make sense. Or if what it means is Rox was going around and defeating other really prominent criminals and, like, mercenaries and pirates and other people in the world and bandits, and, you know, he just wiped them out because of how strong the Rox crew was. It probably refers to that. But yeah, so let's just go through this really quick. Like, the biggest thing, 5 towns wiped off the map and an entire nation brought to ruin. A lot of that other stuff is probably not going to be fleshed out. Like, we're probably not going to learn about all 76 ships that they sunk or the 16 raids and stuff like that. But the one nation brought to ruin, which nation was that? Because there's a few that it could be. It could have been, what about Kurigana Island? The island we know that, like, Mihawk is basically squatting in with his castle. There was a big war there at one point, and everybody, all the humans basically killed each other in this war, and then the human drills picked up weapons and they learned how to fight through the humans' warfare and everything like that. Not really sure if that refers to this, but I'm just trying to think of, like, really prominent nations in the world that are not around anymore in the One Piece world because of, you know, maybe something that Rox did, right? He destroyed an entire country. That's wild, okay? That's an insane feat. On top of all the stuff that he did, like, single-handedly, like destroy a gate of justice and killed an admiral, all right? Even if you want to say that, like, the admiral that he purportedly killed was Zephyr and he's in disguise right now, yeah, I guess that can't be the case, because wouldn't Rox recognize him? Like, hey, aren't you that guy? Aren't you that admiral I killed like 12 years ago? And Kyo is just like, no, I have sunglasses. It's like, oh, right, sorry, you looked a little bit, you know, Kyo takes off his sunglasses and Rox is like, it was you! So maybe not that, but he could have been the third admiral, right? But yeah, Rox was freakishly strong, and then when he joined up with all of the other really strong characters like Gonzui and Edward Newgate and Wang, he was nearly unstoppable, ladies and gentlemen. Even with the future king of the pirates, Goldie Roger, out at sea right now, it would not be an overstatement to say this was the era of Rox. And it's been mentioned before by characters like Garp, who we're actually going to see in a moment here, that, yeah, back in the day, it was Rox's era. You know, same thing with, like, Luffy was let's say during Eni's lobby, the Straw Hat crew was obviously causing a lot of trouble for the world government, attacking, you know, their island and declaring war on them, burning the flag, and all of the chaos that ensued in Eni's lobby. He was obviously somebody that was causing a problem for them, but it wouldn't be like, oh, that the Straw Hat Luffy is the greatest threat right now at this moment because, you know, the Yonko are still active in the New World, and like Kaido and Big Mom are still doing things, and Whitebeard was still alive at this point, right? So it's kind of like that at point at Roger. Roger was definitely doing stuff. The Rocks crew was just way more bombastic with it, of course. So we now cut over into the New World at an island called Enishi, or a kingdom maybe called Enishi. And this is a place that is currently, it's an lawless territory because it's an unaffiliated island of the world government, which means the Marines and the Cypher Pole and the world government do not consider anybody that lives on this island as human, essentially. Like, you are not really people because you are not allied with the world government. We can do whatever we want to you here, okay? However, this Enishi kingdom was one of the places that sent food and supplies to Elbaf when they were in the middle of their famine. So Harald is there with the giants in his massive ship to try to help these people. And a member of, I believe, Cypher Pole, he just has a face that makes him look like a dick, is just like, hey, Harald, get out of here, take your giants and leave. This place is unaffiliated with the world government, which means the people here aren't even really people. So it doesn't really matter, right? You and Elbaf, you know, you're kind of working to try to join the world government right now, right? Well, if you attack us here, you know, it would be one thing if you helped us. I mean, if you want to help us, you know, kill all the people on this island, I mean, maybe I could put in a good word for you. But if you're trying to stop us, you know, wiping out this island, well, I don't know, man. I don't think you're going to end up being a part of the world government that way. Dude, the balls on this guy. This guy, this random Cypher Pole agent, armed with nothing more than a pistol and a hat, is like staring down an entire army of giants, including the king of all giants, and is like, piss off, Harald. Yeah, I don't know how this is gonna go well for you, dude, but like, you kind of asked for it at this point, you know? And so Harald, obviously, because he has a shred of empathy in his soul, looks down and is just like, you know, we're not leaving until we repay our debts. How could you treat these people like this? Roar! And then Harald just jumps off the ship and goes careening down and bringing down his sword and crashes into the world government vessel and, probably massacres like everybody on board, I would assume. Also, the government agent just takes out his pistol and just shoots a random woman behind him. You know, like shoots her in the shoulder, like here. I don't know, that could be fatal. That could probably be fatal. She might have died from that. But yeah, Harald is like, you scum aren't even human, and he jumps off his ship and he goes to attack. And of course, because the government is paying Morgans at this point, Morgans is not around yet. That's important to mention, but the World Economic Journal still existed because it was mentioned here that the headline after this moment, of course, the government is going to change it all with their propaganda. So it's King Harald, Elbaf monarch, sinks innocent government battleship, kills everybody on board. Alliance with government revealed to be a plot. It was a ploy the whole time. Harald was exposed for the criminal that he was. You know, that kind of shit, right? So, Big News Morgans had his first big break publicizing the events of God Valley, right? So some people have actually said, because I was doing a video talking about the live action trailer or the teaser trailer that dropped a few days ago, and at Logtown in the trailer, you see like the opera, and there's going to be a musical based off of God Valley and Garp the hero on the events of that island. And there were a lot of people that were like, well, wait a minute, like how does that make sense? The government didn't tell anybody about God Valley. The citizens of the One Piece world shouldn't know about it. No, the citizens do know about a version of God Valley, because when Morgans was 15 years old, he had his first big break as a journalist publicizing that story. Now, it was heavily edited, and we all know Morgans takes like bribes and kickbacks from the government, except until recently. Like recently, Morgans is like, okay, the stories and the news in the world is getting so crazy and so intense and big news that he stopped taking bribes from the government. He's like, I'm just having a field day printing whatever I want in the paper, right? But back in the day, he did take bribes, okay? okay? And it seems like even before Morgans' day, Morgans did not start the World Economic Journal. It existed prior to him, okay? So this was, because this was 42 years ago, right? So yeah, Morgans would have been, you know, he would have been like 10 at this time. So that wouldn't have worked. So they're printing this awful story about Harald and all the horrible things that he does, and we can't trust the giants, and we can't let the giants join the world government. Look at them, they were just here to betray us the entire time. That sort of shit. So now we cut to Ida's Tavern on Elbaf, where Ida is there as well as Harald and Rox. And Harald has shaved his head, because remember we see the painting of him at Aust Castle later, and he was bald at the time. So at this point he decided to shave his head, and Rox is visiting him, and it was mentioned quite a few times that Rox occasionally went back to Elbaf to visit Harald and continually asked him to join his crew. Harald refused every single time. And at this point, Harald is even saying that, like, I'm not even letting you, you are like an S-class criminal in the world. I can't even let you into my country now at this point. All right, I'm keeping you, like, I'll have a beer with you out here on the island. I mean, out here on the perimeter of the island in the primordial world. But I can't let you into the island itself anymore. I'm not letting you up to the sun layer, right? So, you know, Rox is just going on about how just like, why are you trying to join the government, Harald? You know, they're just a bunch of bastards anyway. Your whole nation should just join up with me and the Rox crew. Come on, give it up, Harald. Just join my crew already, right? And Harald is just like, no, I am dedicated to this and my principles. One day, sooner or later, Elbaf will join the world government, right? And then Rox is like, is that why you shaved your head as some, you know, idea of loyalty? Is that like some kind of giant cultural thing or something? And then Harald is like, yeah, I know, Garp laughed at me too. So maybe it was like something in like Elbafian culture, like giants would be like, I will show you how dedicated I am. I will shave my head. And to the other giants, that's like, whoa, that shows our king is really dedicated to the cause. But the rest of the world is just like, all right, you shaved your head. Is that supposed to mean anything, right? So Garp laughed at him. Rox starts talking about him. He's like, oh, Garp? Oh, man, that guy hates the upper echelon as well. He hates all of the, like, the Gorosei and everything. He would also be better off as a pirate. Dude, that's a what-if video right there. What if Garp and Harald joined Rox's crew? I just, like, would they have been able to do it? You think at that point, would they have been able to take over, like at that point with that much firepower? I mean, they might have. But then again, we know that, like, strictly speaking, just, like, a lot of strength is not enough, you know, because if strength was just enough, you know, Rox would have just barged into the room of flowers and murdered Emu, and then everything would have been taken care of. Well, not taken care of as good. I mean, Rox would have been the king at that point. Probably wouldn't have been a great place to live, but, you know, if it was that simple to just, like, destroy and bring down the world government. But, dude, Harald, Rox did say he was part of the plan and having the legendary devil fruit and all that, and then he was like, oh, Garp joined too? That's just more power for them, less power for the Marines? I don't know, man. So Harald does say some stuff about the Marines here. He does compliment them as an army. He says they're actually a quite impressive army, and yes, there are some horrible people that are corrupt and are scum in the Marines, but he doesn't let that blind him to the fact that there are so many Marines out there. The average Marine will go out of their way to help people on the day-to-day operations. Now, the whole system is sort of corrupt because the Marines can only help people that are allied with the world government. So if it's an island that's, you know, under like siege or something, or is being attacked by pirates, but they're not allied, they're not paying the heavenly tribute, the Marines cannot go and help them. But a lot of Marines, when they first join up, are there for the whole idea of justice and defending the downtrodden and all those virtues and things like that. He also mentions that, hey, there's already some giants that are part of the Marines, like John Giant, right? We know John Giant was sold into the Marines actually by Mother Caramel, the Mountain Witch, way back in the day. During her flashback, we learn about that. We see a scene of John Giant in his younger years. We also see LaCroix in the background, and Ronsei, I believe. Ronsei, no, I think it was not Ronsei. There was another giant there, but we see the giant squadron during Marineford, right? And so, yeah, they're okay with letting the giants join the Marines, but they're not at the point where they're letting the giants, like, as like their whole country, Elbaf, joining the world government, and there's still some, like, prejudice against them there, and they don't really trust them all that much, right? And so it might also tie back to the Galleria giants way back in the day of, like, why the government doesn't trust the giants too much, right? So Harald says, you know, like John Giant and all these other warriors in the Marines, they could use their boundless strength to make a difference for people everywhere, right? Rock says, oh, now that's terrifying. Like the idea of like giants joining the Marines. That is terrifying. There's just one giant squad that maybe has like, we didn't see that many, maybe like around 10 or so giants that were at Marineford. Most of them don't even have names, I don't think. There was even one that was like a female giant that used like a spear too that was like attacking. And all the giants are given the rank of Vice Admiral too. Saul was a giant too. But that was the giant squad, right? Like there's not like, that's the difference between a particular squad and an entire country of giants backing the Marines as an organization. That is what Rox is talking about here. Would be truly terrifying, right? So Rox looks over at Ida and it's just like, hey Ida, why don't you talk some sense into your husband over here? You know, what's going on, right? And so she just kind of smirks and she's like kind of paying attention to the conversation, but she's like not really vocalizing her opinion on it. And she's just like, well, let's see. If I was giving advice to like a child, I would say you should choose your friends wisely, right? So that's kind of Ida's like subtle way of like slighting Rox, like a little passive aggressive there. Or telling him like, hey, your friend is like a bad influence on you sort of thing, right? We also see Mato, Hiruden, and Loki outside of the bar, and they're kind of like, I don't know if they're really listening into the conversation or if they're just outside having a drink of like juice or whatever off to the side. Yeah. Now we cut over to Navy HQ about 42 years ago. Okay, so this was back at the original Marineford, right? In the first half of the Grand Line. So we have a meeting between Kong, Sengoku, Garp, and Suru, all in their younger years, okay? Where Garp, Sengoku, and Suru are all in their 30s at this point. We don't know how old Kong would be, but he was probably like in his 50s at this point, right? Kong is probably like, the way that we're seeing here, because he's still alive. We see him at the end of part 1 of One Piece, you know, when Sengoku meets him and kind of turns in his resignation letter and everything. Kong's got to be in his upper 80s, if not early 90s, like really. 80s at least, okay? So, back in the day, Kong at this point was an admiral. He's eventually going to be promoted to Fleet Admiral right around the time Roger's executed and all that's going on. He's going to be Fleet Admiral, and then eventually gets promoted again. Sengoku becomes the new Fleet Admiral, and Kong becomes the Commander-in-Chief, which is the commander of the Warlords and the Cypher Pole and the Marines as an organization, okay? So at this point, Garp, Sengoku, and Suru are all Vice Admirals, okay? All in their 30s. And Garp maintains this status of Vice Admiral all the way up into his 70s. He refuses the promotion because, as Rock says, he doesn't really respect like the upper echelon. He doesn't want to be directly under the thumb of the Celestial Dragons, okay? So a couple of things about this conversation. They're talking about how, like, oh, if a giant were to roll over in their sleep, people could be crushed to death. If one loses his temper, an entire island could be wiped off. So they're talking about all the prejudice about, like, why we don't want giants joining the world government, why we shouldn't trust them all that much, right? And this is all stuff that shows up in the newspaper that people all over the world are reading about, right? And so Garp brings up the objection. He's like, okay, so they're all right. We're all right with them joining the Marines, but we're not letting them join the world government. Like, that's some bullshit right there, right? Sengoku says that Harald is an honest man. He's trying to learn from history. He's trying to change Elbaf from the warfaring nation more for peace. Suru mentions that Harald is being scouted by Rox, and we need to mobilize. We need to do something right here. If that's true, if like Harald joins up with Rox and the Elbaf giants are there, we might not be able to stop them. The Marines might not be enough, right? And then we have Kong, who's like, hey guys, I mean, you make all good points, but it really does seem like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, if you know what I mean. But I probably just translation. But it would be so fucking funny if Kong's, like, thing was making lame puns in really serious situations. Because we don't know much about the guy, honestly. We don't know much about his personality other than he has giant arms. That's pretty much it, right? So, yeah. Now, here's the thing. We get little title boxes under each of them. Vice Admiral Garp, who's eventually going to be Luffy's grandpa. Vice Admiral Sengoku, eventually the future Fleet Admiral. Admiral Kong, eventual Commander-in-Chief. And then we have Vice Admiral Suru, future Great Staff Officer. Now, this isn't a new title for Suru. This has always been associated with her, okay? Even as far back as her first introduction after Alabasta at the Warlord meeting, she was introduced as Suru, Great Staff Officer, okay? Or Chief of Staff is another way of saying it, kind of, okay? So it's similar in the way that it's translated into English to Sabo's position in the Revolutionary Army, but the two are very different in the way that the kanji and the meaning of the word, okay? And his title in Japanese is Sanbo Socho. Okay? This is like an official military rank, and it designates Sabo as second in command of the entire Revolutionary Army, Chief of Staff. He commands the army to an extent, and then Dragon is the only one above him. Okay, that is Sabo's position, number 2. Then we have Suru as the Great Staff Officer. Her title has always been Dai Sanbo. All right, so Sabo's is Sanbo Socho, Suru's is Dai Sanbo, which could indicate maybe more of an honorary title. So we have over here, I actually bought this when I was in Japan at the One Piece store. This is like a nice little hierarchy of Marine ranks, right? So, like, we have admirals here, and then we have Fleet Admiral up here, right? And then we have Kong above even them, all right? Now, there is no official title for Staff Officer or Chief of Staff in the same way the Revolutionary Army has it, right? However, it's a very popular opinion, I don't even know if it's an opinion at this point, it might just be fact, that Sengoku as the Fleet Admiral has to have somebody helping him with his duties and like planning tactics and everything, and that person was Suru. So she gets the title of Great Staff Officer. It's not like she gets promoted, because there's nothing like Vice Admiral, Admiral, Great Staff Officer, Fleet Admiral. It doesn't go like that. But she might have special status amongst the Vice Admirals, okay? So, like, I'm sure Suru and Sengoku were in the war room planning out what Marineford was going to be, do the encircling walls, and how to trap everybody, and do all that kind of shit, right? She has a very important position in the Marines, even if it's not, like, a legitimate official thing. So, like, for instance, you know, back in, you know, the original part of One Piece, when Sengoku was the Fleet Admiral, and then you have the 3 admirals, Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru. If Suru, who is lower rank than the admirals as a vice admiral, if Suru gave an order to Akainu, I don't think Akainu would just be like, "You're just a vice admiral, Suru. I'm an admiral. Screw off. I don't have to listen to you." I mean, I guess technically he could, but I feel like he wouldn't. I feel like, hey, this is like the second in command next to Sengoku. Basically, you should really listen to Osuru. Okay, that's kind of the idea, right? Think about it another way. Garp is a vice admiral, but he's kind of not on the same rank as the other vice admirals in the Marines, because he's had that title for like 40 years, right? So, like, let's say Garp was giving an order to another vice admiral that was like, you know, hasn't spent as many years in the Marines, like Doberman or somebody, like, "Hey, Doberman, you know, go into that battle and fight those pirates." I don't think Doberman would turn to Garp and be like, "Screw you, Garp, we're both vice admirals, you can't boss me around. I only take orders from admirals and the Fleet Admiral, and that's it. And Kong. And the Celestial Dragons, and the God's Knights, and the Gorosei, and the Shadow Person we're not supposed to know about, and whoever's in front of that guy. There's probably somebody even higher than that, right?" But I don't think Doberman would do that. I think Doberman would be like, "All right, Garp, a Vice Admiral, same position as me, but has held that position for like 40 years, kind of outranks me in terms of seniority. He's kind of, you know, higher rank, you know what I mean? Like, that's probably how it goes, right?" But I just want to bring that up, because, yeah, Sengoku and Suru working together, and it was also the two of them that went to Dressrosa to bring Doflamingo in. Now, it could have been just because Suru has a previous history with Doflamingo. She was the one that was, like, going after Doflamingo for years, in the same way that, like, Smoker goes after Luffy, right? Or Garp went after Roger. Doflamingo was, like, Suru's, like, rival, okay? So it makes sense in that regard, but I just wanted to bring it up there, okay? So, Kong is like, "Hey guys, if it was up to me, if I was the commander-in-chief, I would have already made them an ally of the world government." Actually, I don't even know if as commander-in-chief he would have had the authority to do that. That seems like something that final say has to go through the Gorosei and probably Emu, all right? But, you know, Garp is just saying, like, "Hey, that's the kind of strength I'm after, Kong. You know, we need that strength for the Marines. We need that, you know, we need Harald and we need the Giants for us." So he's talking about how, like, this article in the paper and all the things they're saying about the Giants is actually probably going to ultimately hurt the world government and the Marines, right? Just hurry and make Elbaf a member nation already so we can end all this. And then Kong is like, "Well, if it was up to me, it wouldn't be an issue, but I'm just an admiral, right? I don't have the authority." So now we cut to 42 years ago. Hachinosu, Full-a-Lead Island, the pirate beehive, where big news is sweeping the shores. All the pirates on the island are looking at the newspaper and they are dumbfounded by the headline. The captain of the Kuja pirates, Shakuyaku, has retired from her position. This is really big news. This is big news before Big News Morgans, okay? So, Shakuyaku has given up her title as Empress of the Kuja and Amazon Lily, and also as the captain of the Kuja Pirates, and now all of the pirates are, like, upset, be like, no! I dreamed about Shakuyaku attacking us so I could get a glimpse of her beauty, but now that dream is dashed into oblivion. I became a pirate so I could be killed by Shakky! You know, like, that briefest moment where she kicks me in the face, it's like, it was all worth it. Boom! That's basically all the pirates are upset here, okay? And so we see Rox's, I don't know if it's his ship or if it's like some location on the island, but we see Gloriosa reading the newspaper and learning about what happened to Shakky. So yeah, Shakky was not the Empress for that long, all right? Gloriosa left 44 years ago, joined the Rocks Pirates to chase after Roger, and then Shakky became the Empress. 2 years later, she retires. So this kind of makes sense now why Tritoma stuck around for so long. Tritoma was the Empress for a long time, right? So Boa became Empress when she was 18. That was 13 years ago, all right, from the present storyline of One Piece, right? So that would be like from 42 years ago to, yeah, it would have been, oh God, math. Okay, hold on a minute, I'll get there. All right, so 13 years prior to the story. All right, so you got to subtract 13 from 42. Oh, that's tough. No human being alive can do that. 30 to 29. Tritoma was Empress for 29 years. I'm locking in. Final answer. Doo-doo-doo. I don't know. Anyway, she was Empress for a long-ass time, right? And so maybe that's the reason why, because Tritoma was, you know, she didn't leave the island during her love sickness because Gloriosa left and Shakuyaku left, so she's like, I can't abandon my people. I guess I'm staying here. Even if I get sick and die, I have to stay here for my people, right? Yeah. Okay, so Gloriosa's next to Big Mom, and Gloriosa's just like, oh, okay, you know, I wonder why Shakky is resigning. And so Big Mom is like drinking booze, and like all of her kids are around her. We see Katakuri, we see Oven, we see Daifuku there, and she's just like, oh, maybe she ran off with, you know, chase after a guy, just like you did, Gloriosa. And Gloriosa is just sitting there just like, you don't know anything about love, Big Mom. You pop out kids like they're popcorn. I guess not Big Mom yet, but you don't even know anything about love, Lin. You pop out kids like they're popcorn. I know. And so at this point, 42 years ago, yeah, Big Mom, I think this is right after the year Brule and Broye would have been born. I don't think they're the most recent children they have. I think there's a newborn this year, but yeah, she has like something like 19, 20 kids even at this point, okay? And we see some of them there. Also, it's interesting because, you know that flashback we got with Katakuri and Brule, where Katakuri was always made fun of for his mouth, and we see him at like that island where he was constantly ridiculed, and also the island where Brule got attacked, right? And Katakuri chased all the pirates off. That was more than likely Hachinosu. In fact, it pretty much had to be at this point, right? So yeah, Katakuri and Oven and Daifuku and Perospero and everybody, Compote, the first daughter, they all grew up on Hachinosu. They were born on Rox's ship and I guess stayed behind here, I guess, and had to, you know, fend for themselves. It doesn't seem like, Big Mom didn't really seem that much like a helicopter parent, so it really was just like, okay, kids, you figure it out. We're leaving. I'm going out to sea to plunder, so you stay here on the island and, you know, have fun, be safe, stay hydrated, bye, right? And that's kind of how it went, right? So, Gloriosa does say, though, I can't imagine Shakuyaku getting the love sickness. And it's true, it's never been mentioned that I think Shakuyaku had the love sickness. It was mentioned that Tritoma had it and died, and Gloriosa had it. But it was never actually mentioned, I think, or even implied that Shakuyaku had it. Maybe it was implied at one point, but I'm not really sure. And Gloriosa just says, I'd never forgive her if she went after Roger, you know, because Roger's the one she's going after. Then we have Miss Buckingham Stussy, the original, who is like, oh, it's always Shakky this and Shakky that. At least you've only got eyes for me, right, Newgate? And so she looks over at Whitebeard because, you know, Buckingham Stussy was always clinging to Whitebeard. We see that at God Valley. And I don't know what Whitebeard's doing off to the side. He's holding up Murakumo Giri. He's like looking at his reflection in Murakumo Giri, not really paying attention. I also like to think that's how Whitebeard shaves. He just shaves with his Naginata. But he's just like, I've never been in love with you, not once. I don't even know what you're going on about. He's just like looking into his weapon, and then Stussy just grabs him, just like, what did you just say? How dare you? I am the tech thief, Miss Buckingham Stussy. I've done so much. Miss Stussy has had like no feats up until now. Like we did a tier list ranking all of the Rocks crew. Like what has Stussy actually done? It's mentioned that she steals technology and stuff. I don't see her pulling out a laser cannon or something. Like, Jensen has a cyborg arm. What do you do? All right? Can you even turn into a vampire bat? I think right now the clone is outranking you, you know? Anyway, Whitebeard eventually is just like, you know, because, you know, she's like grabbing him. It's like, how dare you, Edward Newgate? You know, I thought I cared about you. I thought you cared about me. And Whitebeard's just like, okay, yeah, fine, sure, I want you, okay. You know, it's like, all right, so that's their dynamic, okay. But then something crazy is happening. The Kuja pirate ships, the Perfume Yuta, arrives and docks at Hachinosu at that exact moment. Shakuyaku walks off the ship carrying a suitcase. She's thanking Tritoma. Thank you, Tritoma, this will do. And it's like, yes, ma'am, have fun on Pirate Island, I guess. And so Tritoma leaves. Have fun being the Empress, right? In Pirate Island's history, this incident is said to rank amongst the greatest. Even with all that was yet to come, the arrival of the world's most beautiful idol caused a commotion in the hive of murderous fiends. So you can only imagine, given the fact of what we've seen with Shakuyaku's beauty and the Rocks crew and the Roger crew and well, not the Rocks crew, but the Roger crew in the last chapter, just how insanely popular they were, and Shakuyaku's beauty in general was like radiating. So like she didn't have Boa's ability to, you know, petrify people, but she might as well have, because she's just walking down the island just like, oh, okay, this is Pirate Island, right? It kind of stinks here, but I guess I could set up shop. Every single pirate is like groveling on their knees like, oh, so beautiful, I can't take it, you know, like they're about to pass out there, right? And it's like, this land is too filthy for you, milady. You mustn't go any further into the den of debauchery. You know, it's like, okay, all right. You know, that your vision is blurred. I can no longer see. I'm blinded, right, by the heavenly radiant light. And so Shakuyaku is just like, oh, because they're asking her, hey, do you want to join the Rocks Pirates like Gloriosa? Is that why you're here? And Shaki's just like, nah, just want to open a bar. Thinking about starting a small business. Can you help me out? And of course, everybody on Hachinosu, like every single person that could hear her, is just like, absolutely, what do you need? It's like, well, this place kind of sucks. There's kind of trash everywhere. We'll clean everything up for you immediately, my lady. It's like, okay, what about, I can use a shop to open up a bar in. We'll build one for you post-haste. Come on, you swabs. Let's start building a bar for Shakky. Right, oh, legendary bar. Okay, yeah, see, that makes sense now, yeah. So, yeah, Shakky just like casually is like not even like ordering anybody around. She's just like, I want to start a bar here. It's like a little dirty, can you clean it up? And like within a day, everybody's already doing it, right? And so they start setting up shop for Shakky, and then Rocks finally arrives with his crew. Don Marlin, Whitebeard, Shiki, they're all there, Don Zui. And it's like, hey, what's all the noise? What are all you people doing down here making such a racket? And it's like, oh, Rocks, you don't understand. An angel has descended. And it's like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? And we see Shakky's ripoff bar, the original Shakky's ripoff bar, in immaculate condition. And Shakky walks out wearing an apron with the Kuja pirate logo on it. And she's just like, hi, I'm so happy to see you. And they mention that like, oh man, you know, reservations to get in would even only take over a month already, right? But Shakky walks out and she's like, I'm so happy to see you. Welcome to my bar. I would love you to be the first customer. And so she's like inviting Rocks and his crew in. Would you like a drink? Everybody on the Rocks crew, like John, Shiki, even Whitebeard, Whitebeard's never really been shown to like have the heart eyes and go Sanji with it, but even Edward Newgate was not immune to Shakky's charms and immediately was like, whoa, she's an angel, right? Rocks as well, same thing. Rocks is about to pass out, right? Everybody, Don Marlin even, you know, it's just like, yeah. So her very presence enriched the island. The inhabitants of Hachinosu came to covet her as a treasure, in irreplaceable crown jewel. Unfortunately, a treasure is always the inevitable target of theft. Okay, so, yeah, we didn't see Shakky at God Valley. We didn't see her there, but she was there. She was taken and that was the reason everybody mobilized at God Valley. So if you were all thinking that like, oh, it must have been like really powerful devil fruits, I mean, they were there, but nah, that wasn't the reason. That wasn't the reason. The reason was Shakky. Shakky was so damn hot. She started essentially like the great, like World War III at God Valley. That is wild. What a twist, Oda. Didn't see that coming. Oh man, okay. All right, anybody that predicted that, congratulations. You could go to your local bakery and have a cookie on me, because damn, I didn't see that coming. All right, so there's even a scene where they're in the bar and Rox is all freaking out like, whoa, this place smells great, this is fantastic. And like Shakky is behind the bar and trying to open like a jar of something, and she's like, oh, I just can't open this darn jar. And then Marlon and John and everybody are like, we'll open it for you, just like climbing over each other, like, we'll open the jar for you. And it's just like, okay. And so yeah, that's the dynamic, I guess, that was established at Hachinosu. Damn it, right? Like that's how it went down. Okay. You know, you ever like is like, hey man, you know, the history books, this epic moment of God Valley, a war between Marines and Rox and Roger and the Gods Knights and all that. And it's like, if anybody from the current story like time traveled back to God Valley, they'd find out the real situation. They'd be like, really? That's what really happened? Okay, they left that part out of the history books, so like whatever. So last scene of the chapter, we cut over to the Room of Authority at Marineford. We see the Gorosei. The Gorosei do not age, so they were the same, they look the same as they did back then. You know, Saturn is with them and everything. Very well then. Relay this to Harald. We shall accept Elbaf as a member of the world government on one condition. The warriors of Elbaf must kill Rox D. Zebek. And that's the end of the chapter, and we have a break next week, okay? So, damn, the Gorosei are bringing out the big guns now. They're like, all right, Harald wants to join the world government really badly, but we're kind of hesitant to do that. Rox is causing a lot of trouble. Two birds with one stone here. We can have Harald and the giant army wipe out Rox, take care of them, and then I'll let them join. So now Harald is going to have a whole dilemma. Like, he does, I guess, in a way, consider Rox a friend. Like, he's still meeting with him and having beers with him and stuff like that. So it's not like he's like, we're never friends, get off my island. It's nothing like that. They're still kind of at least drinking buddies. So Harald does not want to join Rox's crew because of all the horrible things he's doing, and that'll hurt his chance of getting into the world government. But when offered the chance to join the government, but in return, you essentially have to betray someone you consider a friend, what's Harald gonna do there? Because from what we know, Harald was never a member of the Rox Pirates, although I guess it's possible he could be. Is he going to turn on the government and side with Rox? Or is he going to stay with the government? Because even to this day, that's the interesting thing. To this day, Elbaf is not allied with the world government, right? It's implied that he was very close to allying with the world government, and then he was murdered. But that was only 14 years ago, right? This is 42 years ago. This is way before the events of, like, Loki and getting stabbed in the throne room and all that, right? So it's very interesting to see exactly the dynamic where this could go. And I'll break it down more, and we'll look at, like, all the options of, like, the timelines and stuff like that, exactly what could happen here, right? But aside from all of that, I have another question here for you all. Would the Gorosei be affected by Shakky's angelic beauty? Because everybody else is. I wonder if Shakuyaku would. I wonder if Emu would. All right? So Shakuyaku right now, objectively strongest character in the One Piece world. I mean, like, stronger than Roger. She beat Roger in his prime. I don't know how. I don't set the rules for this, right? So Shakky versus Emu. Let's see what happens. Yeah, crazy chapter though. Honestly, all things considered, not a particularly long chapter. We had the scene at the beginning with Rox's crew and their, exploits out in the world and all the crimes they did. We had Harald in the scene where he saved the people of that island. The meeting between Rox and Harald there, we shaved his head. We have a meeting with the Marines back then. That was really cool. And then it cuts just right to Hachinosu. Well, by the way, why did Shakky want to quit? to open a bar on Pirate Island. I guess she does mention why she was at Pirate Island, because even if she retires from the Kuja, they're not going to just let her set up base wherever she wants. She would be chased by the Marines forever, right? So the only option for her really was Hachinosu. So that's the reason she's there. But why the hell would she want to quit all of a sudden just to be like, she's not, keep in mind, she's not just giving up being a pirate. She is, in a way, abandoning her entire country. She is the Empress of the Kuja, and she's like, nah, I want to go start a bar. Now, granted, it's like, hey, follow your dreams, I guess, but there has to be a good reason for this, right? Like, there has to be. Unless, like, Shakky just has the personality of, I want to start a bar, I don't care what position I'm given, I don't care that I'm the Empress of all these people, and I have to watch after them and make sure they're okay, and rule an island and be a ruler. I don't want to be a ruler. I'm gonna go over here and start a bar. You guys have fun. But then again, because of Shakky's beauty, like, everybody on the Kuja might just been like, okay, you could do whatever you'd like. So maybe they were supportive of her. I don't know. But also, eventually, she opens up the rip-off bar, leaves Hachinosu, and gets, moved to Sabaody in Grove 13, and then she marries Rayleigh. So what's the story there? When did Shakky, like, leave Hachinosu and set up shop there? Probably after Rox died, and I guess Wang took over the island. I guess maybe at that point she moved. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of pieces here that we never knew about. The idea of Shakky opening up the bar originally on Hachinosu was never on my bingo card, all right? But here we go. So yeah, great chapter, really solid stuff. I will see you back here in 2 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be talking about a lot of this stuff. In the meantime, we do a live stream usually on Saturdays or Sundays to break down the chapter further. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Techie 101 signing out. Elbaf! Da 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 da. Curtain calls at 5 o'clock on Fridays, so come and meet me there. We got a whole play to put on, everybody. You gotta practice. It makes perfect.